I want to talk about my biggest boomer bust teams going into the 2023 NFL season. Now, I don't know what your definition is for a boomer bust team, but my definition is these are teams that could end up being really good or they could end up being really terrible. And the first team that I'm going to start off with are the Green Bay Packers. Now, I think how good the Green Bay Packers are going to be this year is greatly going to depend on the play that they get out of their quarterback, Jordan Love. He's been sitting in the shadows behind Aaron Rodgers for the last couple of years, and we don't really know what the hell to expect from this brother, man. This brother, sometimes you hear some great reports about him, teammates are gassing him up, and then you have former teammates who don't have that much confidence in him. So it's really going to be interesting to see how Jordan Love is going to perform for the Green Bay Packers this year. And if Jordan Love ends up being good, that means that Green Bay would have once again struck on another franchise quarterback. They've already had a really great run with Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Brett Starr, and imagine if they can continue that legacy with Jordan Love being a good QB. And there's definitely no reason why Jordan Love shouldn't have a successful season this year for the Packers. He has a good group of receivers. Jaden Reed, you got Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, you have a really good offensive line, and you got a really good running back core as well with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And I think that Matt LaFleur is a pretty good head coach, although this is going to be a prove-it year for him. Also, this being the first season without him having Aaron Rodgers at the helm. And then this Green Bay Packers defense. Now, I know that a lot of people don't believe in Joe Barry, especially if you are a Packers fan. Joe Barry is probably the most hated defensive coordinator amongst Packers fans that they've had in a very long time. But this defense does have a good amount of talent. He dealt with some injuries last year. Rashawn Gary is coming back fully healthy. Before Rashawn Gary got injured last year, he was in the running for a Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion. So the Green Bay Packers, if Jordan Love plays good and Joe Barry can get good play out of this defense, the Green Bay Packers, without a doubt, I feel are going to be a playoff team. But if Jordan Love ends up sucking water through a garden hose this year, the Packers probably are going to be in the running for being in the conversation to get either Drake May or Caleb Williams potentially. Maybe not so Caleb Williams, but more so Drake May or whatever good quarterback is coming out in next year's draft. The Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons are really interesting to me. A lot of Falcons fans feel like I'm sleeping on them. I'm not sleeping on the Falcons. As of right now, I don't know if the Falcons are a playoff team or if they're going to be a team that barely misses out on the postseason, because I do like Atlanta's offense. Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to have a better season this year than what he had last year. You got Drake London, who had a really promising rookie season. I'm a big fan of Bijan Robinson. Y'all know Bijan Robinson is one of my favorite rookies coming into this year's season. And then Desmond Ridder, who I don't really have a lot of confidence in, but it's not like they need Desmond Ridder to play at a high level. They got a pretty manageable schedule. They're in a weak division. I just don't know how that defense is going to look. And the Falcons fans that I've been talking to have tried to get me a little bit hyped about this defense, and they tried to say that this defense is going to be improved. They got a new defensive coordinator, but there's just no way you can tell me that signing 36-year-old Calais Campbell is going to greatly improve your defense. And I do feel like Atlanta has improved on that side of the football, but have they improved enough to make it to the playoffs? You traded for Jeff Okudah. You don't know what you're going to get out of Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah, he was a up and down player during his time for the Detroit Lions. During the first half of last year, he was fantastic. A lot of people forget, but he clamped up Justin Jefferson. And then during the second half of the season, he just completely fell off the cliff. So you don't really know how Jeff Okudah is going to perform this year. There's just a lot of question marks that I have about this Atlanta Falcons defense walking into this year. But if this defense plays well and this offense can gel and Desmond Ridder ends up making the necessary improvements needed, this is definitely going to be a team that's going to be in contention, not just to win their division, but also be able to make it to the postseason. And like I said, Desmond Ridder doesn't need to play like an all-star or an elite QB. The Falcons are a run-heavy team. Arthur Smith puts a lot of emphasis on running the football. So Desmond Ridder just needs to be a good game manager, take care of the football, and make big throws and big moments when needed. And if he can do that, that's going to increase the Falcons' chances of making it to the postseason. And I also think if this defense can play at a good level, they have a really strong chance of being able to win the NFC South this year and making it to the playoffs. We got another NFC South team on this list. We got the New Orleans Saints. You guys already know that I'm not a big believer in the Saints this year, simply for the fact that they have Dennis Allen as their head coach. And Saints fans have a bevy of excuses that they make for Dennis Allen. Oh, it's Pete Carmichael. Well, if Pete Carmichael was the problem, why didn't Dennis Allen get rid of him? He's still an offensive coordinator, and he's still going to be calling plays. And I get that the Saints dealt with a lot of injuries last year, especially when it came to their offensive line. But Sean Payton, in his final season with New Orleans, he went 9-8 with 4 different quarterbacks. He was 5-1 with Jameis Winston at one point. And then he goes down, and he's finding ways to win games with Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, and Ian Book with the worst receiving core in the league that year. New Orleans' best receiver, Sean Payton's final season, was Marquez Callaway. So if Sean Payton can go 9-8 with a worse team than what Dennis Allen had to work with last year, why did Dennis Allen win only 7 games? Imagine if Sean Payton would have had last year's New Orleans team. They probably would have made it to the postseason. I'm not a big believer in New Orleans, but if Dennis Allen ends up proving me wrong and he ends up being a good head coach, or at least a solid head coach, good enough to win one of the weakest divisions in the NFL, then I think that the Saints are going to be able to make it to the playoffs without a doubt. They have a very talented team. My concern with New Orleans just lies with the coaching, and I don't know if the coaching is good enough to lock them in as a playoff team. The Cleveland Browns are a team that has not just the potential to make it to the playoffs, but they also have the potential, crazily enough, to make it to the Super Bowl. This is the definition of a boom or bust team. The Cleveland Browns are either going to be really good, or they're going to be a team that underachieves and wins 7 or maybe 6 games. Kevin Stefanski, I really don't know if I would label him a bad coach. I don't think he is a bad coach. I do think that he does a pretty good job managing the Cleveland Browns. He's really good when it comes to getting the most out of the run game. You bring in Jim Schwartz to be your defensive coordinator, who is highly respected around the NFL. His defenses normally are pretty good. They improve the interior of that defensive line. They brought in a lot of bodies, and that run defense should be way better this season than what it was last year. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who, after he got done serving his suspension, he looked really rusty. But if Deshaun Watson can bounce back this year, which many people believe that he will, I think the Browns can be in the postseason. But they're going to be in the toughest division in the NFL. You're going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, although the Browns may have a better roster than, Mike Tomlin is a hell of a coach. And then you got the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are good enough to be Super Bowl contenders this year. For the Cleveland Browns, it's either go big or go home for them this year. This is one of the most talented teams in the AFC. They do have the upside of being able to contend for a Super Bowl, which may sound crazy, but this is a really good roster. They pretty much don't have any concerns outside of if that run defense is going to improve, and their linebacker unit outside of JOK, I'm not really big on who they have at linebacker, but for the most part, the Cleveland Browns have a pretty solid roster that if everything goes right, don't be surprised if you end up seeing them in the AFC Championship game. They can be that good this year, but also things could go really bad. Maybe Deshaun Watson doesn't bounce back. Maybe Kevin Stefanski kind of just loses his luster as a head coach. The Cleveland Browns are the definition of a boom or bust team, and they probably, ahead of the New Orleans Saints on this list, are the biggest boom or bust team heading into this season. And then lastly, we got the New York Jets. I couldn't leave the Jets off this list. Now, I'm high on the New York Jets. A lot of people in the national media aren't as high on the New York Jets as I am, but I think that them trading for Aaron Rodgers makes them a Super Bowl contender. And I think that Aaron Rodgers is going to bounce back to what he was prior to his final season with the Green Bay Packers. It seems like we seem to forget prior to 2022, Aaron Rodgers was the NFL MVP in back-to-back years. And yes, he is getting up there in age, but Tom Brady was still dominating at the age of 40. The majority of quarterbacks in today's NFL are playing well up until they're 40. So I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is just dramatically going to fall off the cliff. And people seem to forget that the New York Jets have a damn good defense. One thing that kept the New York Jets alive, despite having awful QB play with Joe Flacco, decent QB play out of Mike White, and Zach Wilson not being great, was because of how good Sauce Gardner and Robert Saleh's defense was last year. And we're about to talk about the New York Jets later on, but the New York Jets, if everything goes right and if Aaron Rodgers plays at a solid level, they don't even need Aaron Rodgers to be what he used to be in Green Bay, although they would love for that to happen. All they need for Aaron Rodgers to do is be better than what the New York Jets have had at quarterback over the last decade. Who's been the quarterback for the New York Jets? What, Mark Sanchez, Sam Darnold, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Zach Wilson? The bar isn't set too high for quarterback play in the Big Apple if you're a Jets fan. So if you can get top 12, top 13 quarterback play out of Aaron Rodgers, I think that's going to be good enough for you to win this division maybe, or at least be able to get a wild card spot in the postseason, because this defense is going to be good enough to be able to slow down the Bills and the Miami Dolphins offense. So as long as Aaron Rodgers can take care of the football and be better than Zach Wilson, which shouldn't be hard to do, I think that the New York Jets are going to be a playoff team. But if Aaron Rodgers completely has fallen off the cliff and he's not good and he just doesn't have it anymore, the New York Jets are going to be pretty bad. And there's going to be a lot of people getting the pink slip at the end of the season. And there's a lot of pressure on Robert Saleh going into this year. I think Robert Saleh is a really good coach. It's just that they whiffed on the quarterback position. And anytime you whiff at quarterback, it sets your franchise back a couple of years. And 9 times out of 10, the guys who were responsible for making that pick end up losing their job. So there's a lot riding on Aaron Rodgers. Not only are the New York Jets expecting to be Super Bowl contenders with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, but Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, their jobs are potentially on the shoulders of Aaron Rodgers. These are my biggest boom or bust teams heading into the 2023 NFL season. Let me know if there's some teams that you feel I left out on this list. Leave them down in the comment section down below, and let me know if there's a team on this list that you disagree with.